for a team that's coming through from the Pro League Qualifiers that I'm expecting some level of competitive nature, I think that's my bet. I think that's the squad. They should be the ones to do the best.
And they're coming from Pro League Qualifier, you said, right? Hey, what it do, YouTube? It's your boy Q. And I know we've been on a little bit of an Apex break here recently since our Landon weekend. I guess that was, what, like 2 weekends ago? So in case you're new here and y'all forgot, we do cover more than Valorant over here on the channel. Hey, what up? Welcome. And even though we do still have a few weeks here left until Split 2 starts for ALGS, we have already had PLQs wrap up. We've got teams starting to use the third-party tournament scene to kind of fine-tune their new version of what is going to be the new meta coming to things. So I figured, hey, who better to chat with than someone who casted Pro League Qualifiers, is organizing one of these tournaments that pros are using to adjust to these new metas, and is quite frankly one of the hardest working dudes in this line of the work. So for those of you guys who are unfamiliar, you might have seen the hashtag Zephyr for Pro Leagues. That's him down there. What up? You see him around the community from time to time, always on the grind, rain, snow, or shine. Zephyr, how you doing, buddy? Appreciate you for really taking some time and hanging out with your boy today.
Yeah, man. I am pleased to be here. Obviously, we've had the chance to talk minorly in person more so and across a few other realms when it comes to DMs, but I think this is the first time we've actually gotten to like legitimately sit down for like a solid chunk of time and actually kind of hash things out over. I mean, I'm yours today. Maybe whatever you want.
Hey, I love it. I love it. Definitely get a chance to kind of dig in, talk a little Apex. But before we do, you know, for anybody who's tuning in that is unfamiliar with Zephyr, give us like a little 45, 60-second like synopsis, rundown, whatever you want to say, and kind of like what Apex means to you. How have you gotten to where you're at now?
Oh gosh. Okay. My name is Benjamin Fawcett, but most people know me as Zephyr. I am about to turn 22 in just about a month here. I've been casting since I was 17 years old, off of the tail end of high school. I started out in League of Legends for 2 years before jumping ship and exploring my one of my favorite games, Apex Legends. And I've been a part of broadcasts such as ALGS, both the Pro League Challenger Circuit, Pro League Qualifiers, as you've mentioned, the Last Chance Qualifiers. If you're a bigger fan of the third-party scene, things like Esports Arena Series E, Oversight, Nerd Street, and I mean, the list goes on. So many broadcasts that I'd be surprised if you're a competitive Apex fan. There's a very good chance you've seen me at least once.
You've either seen them or heard them, even if you tune in for just 10, 15 minutes, that's for sure. Now, we're going to talk all about with what you've got going on as far as with the Showdown here in just a little bit. But before we get to that, I seem to recall that you were pretty high on major pushers before they got picked up by Aurora and ran the table in EMEA, right? So I am wondering, let's start things off here. Tell me a team that I need to be keeping an eye out for heading into Split 2. Maybe not necessarily someone that's going to ascend to the top the way that we saw Aurora do, but someone that no one's looking out for that they should be looking out for.
Ooh, that is really tough. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, I primarily dabble in the EMEA region. While yes, I do cover a ton of North American stuff, this answer is definitely going to be more biased towards Europe. And a lot of our discussions today are going to be super biased.
100%, 100%.
So if I had to pick someone currently, maybe a little bit under the radar, who might be popping up as we make our way into Pro League Split 2, that's really tough. I will say Major Pushers isn't a hard bite for me at the early, because remember, they were like #1 in the region, then they became Team Empire, #1 again, Aurora, #1 again. Right. They just seem to keep doing it. EMEA's tough. Oh, you put me on the spot, man.
I did, man.
That's really hard.
Listen, I gave you the opportunity that I could send you the outline if you wanted me to.
No. I like this. I just want to say this right off the bat, that no matter who I say here, there's someone going to be extremely upset.
Oh, I mean, that's fair, and that's fair. I mean, obviously, again, if we're only talking one team, obviously, I'm sure there's a couple teams coming to the table. I'm sure you saw even a couple coming through PLQs, which we'll get to here in a minute, but yeah, just one team. Give me if I'm having to be a betting man.
Oh, okay. One Wow.
And again, they don't have to finish first, but somebody who is all of a sudden going to go from off the radar to on the radar.
That's the thing. This is going to be so toxic for me to say, but the top tier of EMEA right now is so well defined that I genuinely do not think that someone, say, coming through from Pro League Qualifiers
Really?
is going to make a hard enough splash to usurp some of those top 5 positions. It's more likely that we take the likes of, say, those who are on the cusp of 10th and further when we look at teams like Element 6, right? Like your Invictus Gaming Store right there on the edge. Those are teams who are going to have more of their shiny moments going into Split 2 rather than specifically when we start looking at like your Kella Gamings and your SPSs. And if I had to pick one that might do well, let's go with 2R1C, the previous Scars roster. Notably, Hiraka and Jarovic just come off the back end of Scars. Not a great performance. Completely terrible. But they jump on and add Uchako to the mix as they leave and pull away from Scars. Uchako, Jarovic, and Hiraka was the 3 trio that actually competed at the ALGS championship that we were both at under the AYM name when Jarovic had to come in last minute as a sub. So for a team that's coming through from the Pro League Qualifiers that I'm expecting some level of competitive nature, I think that's my bet. I think that's the squad. They should be the ones to do the best.
And they're coming from Pro League Qualifier, you said, right?
Yes, they had to defend their position in the Pro League Qualifiers after being relegated, and they managed to do so literally in the last 3 games of finals, picking up 2 wins when it absolutely mattered most.
I love that we have seen over the course of this last season, even if it's maybe not necessarily so much in EMEA, but we have seen teams show that trip from PLQs to even just playoffs is possible, right? When we see teams like Esports Arena or even like Onyx Esports out of APAC South, right? And so it's interesting to hear another team coming from that region. Now, you also mentioned you were kind of talking about PLQs there a little bit, and I kind of wanted to pick your brain a little bit because we saw PLQs get played off of match point format this go around, right? I know a lot of people love, as far as from the spectator view, just what we can get from match point, right? I think it's unmatched when we talk about in esports. And I think when we look at PLQs, even this last time around, most regions got done. I think it was right around that 8-9 game marker. You know, it was pretty much the magic number. APAC North did do APAC North things, of course, going on another marathon. But I'm kind of concerned when we see things like South America, where they're able to wrap up in just 3 games. So I wanted you to kind of give me a little bit of your thoughts as someone who obviously is very much involved in that scene. Do you feel like match point format is still something that should be considered for PLQs, or is this just one of those one-off outliers that maybe we shouldn't be pumping the brakes just quite yet on?
So notably, the thing that I really like about the match point format is it does not confine teams to the 6 game standard in Apex.
Right.
And mathematically, there's only so many points a team can assume, and everyone knows that, right? At a certain point, your teams in 20th, 19th, 18th will be sitting on their 2 to 10 points, and very quickly will realize
we're just out of it.
Yeah, I mean, they're done. And I think a perfect highlight to why that matters most is when we go look at the last chance qualifiers from year 2. A fantastic tournament. Don't get me wrong. 6 games of pure excitement. But especially when we got to games 5 and 6, there were a lot of teams who very quickly realized that, I mean, you're never going to be able to pick up a 40+ point game.
Right.
I mean, it's genuine possible, right? And so that last 6th game became it was terrible. Am I allowed to cuss?
No, fucking let it rip, man.
Okay. I was going to say, it was a complete shit show in that final moment. And so it's very clear that EA saw things like this across all regions, right? And realized, okay, what's the quickest way to competitively fix this?
Right.
Well, match point format isn't perfect. You still do have some of the issues regarding your 20th, 19th, whatever. But especially when you start getting to those kind of 7th and 8th games when you have multiple teams on
On
match
match point,
point,
right?
right? Who realize how close they are, as well as the teams who understand that they are given these extra games. It's not ending at game 6. You're going to have, like for 2-1RC or 2R1C, they had their game 9, 8, and 7 to get the job done. Their
Right.
first 6 games were practically abysmal in comparison. It took the very last minutes. If this was a standard 6-game format, we would
They're
not
done.
be discussing them here today. So it's giving teams that extra emphasis to continue to try to compete, because in match point, you don't know when it's going to end. You
Right.
don't know if it's going to be the next game or potentially in 4 games, right? And that's where it really particularly matters, because 4 games is more than enough time to put up numbers, sometimes even close to the triple digits if you're having the most phenomenal runs.
Yeah, I just know one thing that I was concerned at when I had seen the essay, when I was like, man, if you have 1-2 bad drops in 3 games and you're in
Right.
PLQs, so do you think there's, if let's just throw out a for instance, if we see
Okay.
another one of those at like there, do we set at least a minimum qualification of let's at least play a 6-game series and then match point becomes eligible? Or how would you address that to at least make sure that there's a little bit more form of
It's really
consistency?
tough. It's really tough because in those situations, one team dictates the rest of the lobby,
Right.
right? That's what we're explaining. For South America, for those who don't know, it went to 3 games. The team who notably took away the win, I believe, placed second in game 1, first in game 2, hit
Yeah.
match point 50 just in 2 games, and then walked into their win in game 3. And yeah, those are scary situations because it really leaves it up to, who was the only other competitors to,
Get a couple kills.
sneak into
Yeah.
a couple kills, a decent placement in these 3 games, because that's really who got that lovely opportunity to now compete in the split 2 of Pro League. Let me be honest. There's someone out there who has a really good answer for the competitive nature of Apex Legends, and it
Right.
doesn't have anything to do with match point, and it doesn't have anything to do with the standard 6-game format. And I'll be honest, it's not something that I've ever really tried to think about here.
That's fair.
I think match point on average is very applicable to these situations. It's very rare that you have the extreme blowouts.
Right.
And so in that regard, it's kind of just like a buck up or shut up moment for some of those teams in South America. There's clearly someone in this lobby that is running it. That means these games are even more impactful. I personally, it feels rough to know that, like, man, 2 really bad polls and suddenly you're not in Pro League versus getting the full 6-game stint.
Right.
But Q, at some point we have to draw a line somewhere.
Right, exactly.
Someone's
There's going to be
going
one-offs or
face
something.
difficulties,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And especially in a game that's a battle royale. No one can have their, the creme de la crop every single time.
So, now at this point, PLQs are done. We have a few weeks out, I think, at this point. Have they officially released when Split 2 starts? What week it is? I think it's like early April, right?
It's
End of March?
really tough to tell. I'm sitting here, I obviously have Wikipedia open up on my second one.
Regardless, we still have at least a month. It's probably be about a month and a half probably until we see.
It's definitely going to be somewhere at the end of March, potentially into April here for Pro League. Just because I think you want to know the biggest way to tell? Oversight. Oversight's a really good kind of
indicator
middle
of
ground for figuring it out, because they tend to try to base what will be, the starts of Pro League into that around.
Looking back, that does make sense to the start of the last split too. So that definitely makes a lot of sense. Okay.
So they hit somewhere in the mid-March area when they start really get going. So it's very likely that late March to early April is when we see Pro League start.
So now with, a little bit of time here, we're going to have these teams. They've got the third party scene. You obviously got to do a little bit of esports arena last night, actually, as we're recording this today. Our teams have a whole new meta to get used to, right? And a whole guap of changes here with season 16. So give me some, way too early, obviously, but give me some kind of your thoughts about what we're going to be expecting to see different come split 2 for ALGS. Are Scan Legends still supreme? Is Valkyrie still basically an instant lock in every comp? Talk to me a little bit here.
Okay. So I think one of the nicest points that I've seen raised in the recent like 2 or 3 days here
Hmm.
is less that we are seeing a meta shift in terms of the strengths of certain legends now very much overpower others.
Okay.
I think things that have been too overpowered, like we talk about Seer, Horizon, especially coming off the back end of what was this 8 month meta after champs, and
Right.
then they're being kind of rung in a little bit, brought down from their pedestal.
Okay.
We see grab lift nerfs, we see seer passives and ultimate nerfs, etc. Right, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you're having entities that haven't gotten the opportunity to shine, put in a place of strength, but not to super extents. There's obviously going to be like one or two legends that I think are very apt to the current meta, and we will very quickly see that within 2-3 weeks as things begin to
Hmm.
continually highlight themselves. But it's not so much that we're seeing new S tier legends. I think everyone is starting to put themselves on a very equal platform. We're
Okay.
getting to a point in Apex Legends where it is
Everything's
becoming, yeah,
viable-ish.
it's becoming more competitively viable to have your run of the mill when it comes to a pickup here and there.
Play what
There's
suits you instead of suiting what
right.
the meta is. Okay.
Yeah, it felt like there was a really strong chokehold. You had to adhere to Valkyrie, Seer, Watson, and Horizon for the last like 8 months, right?
Right.
In year three. It definitely feels like comps and teams, they're going to be able to explore a lot more opportunities, as we make our way into this next split. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's definitely things I'm missing. There's going to come a point where we look at potentially Wraith, right? With now the extra distance, as teams feel more comfortable to go back on it, and that's suddenly like the S tier pick that everyone's running, or potentially things like
Do you think
Bangalore,
Catalyst shows up? Do you
Bangalore.
think at all since we saw teams giving Catalyst a try? Just curious.
I think Catalyst has a place in the meta at
Yeah.
some point. I like to. This is how. So I also coach a team on the side. So
Okay.
yeah,
Getting the coach cap on. I love it. Uh,
I wear many
so
hats.
it's our second interview with the coach over here on the channel. Love it. All right. Cool, cool, cool.
Yeah. I coach, yeah, I coach a team, and so I always like to discuss control legends, as I'll now aptly name them in this order. You have your most defensive picks when it comes to control legends, and you have your most aggressive offensive choices.
Hmm.
Watson is on the far left end of being the most defensive.
Right.
None of the abilities offer utility in that regard. As you slowly cater towards the other side, we start looking at your major setup towards things like your Caustic and Catalyst right there in the middle, who are more, we'll say, a mixed bag, from piercing spikes on Catalyst that can offer really good zone control to caustic gas traps.
Mhm.
Obviously, Nox Gas Grenade and Dark Veil are two very separate ultimates.
Right.
One much more utility based in terms of rotational and dissuading pressure. The other being more zone control and potential damage to cover space. And then Rampart, if I'm correct, being the last control legend, being on the furthest end of the most aggressive, a very selfish legend at times,
Right.
with Sheila. So Catalyst is in this wonderful place of very strong lockdown, hard defensive zone control. You have some minor control with the piercing spikes, but in most situations, you'll find teams set up with that Catalyst in one of those final end game God spot buildings, and just try to levy it for as long as they can before either having to exert the Dark Veil in a mid 3v3 fight, or potentially for that next best rotation forward. Um, it's definitely not something that I consider to be the meta,
Right.
the strongest pick right now,
But
but
we'll see it.
it definitely will exist for certain teams out there, for sure.
I'm excited to see. I know I kind of talked about it a little bit over here when I first saw the kind of the changes and was the way too early reactions to what we might see as far as changes in ALGS. But it was one thing I was curious because I know we had seen some teams playing with Catalyst
Yeah.
kind of heading into the season. So I was kind of curious as far as your thoughts there. But, I know you're super excited to talk about the Showdown. I promise we're talking about it here in a second. But I got a question for you. How's your sleep, fam? Like, you ever
My
wish you could sleep better?
Yeah, always.
Yeah. All right. YouTube. How about you guys? Anyone else suffer from like headache due to like long hours of the grind, right? GamerAdvantage is the leader in impactful eyewear technology that has been proven to help you sleep better, focus more, all without distorting color or comfort. All right. Relieves headaches and eye strain, all while fitting comfortably under a headset. So make sure y'all are staying in the game longer with GamerAdvantage. I'm going to have that link down in the description below. Don't forget, when you check out, code YoBoyCue saves you 10%. All right. Seriously, you'll like never catch me not wearing a pair, whether it's casting, watch partying, gaming, like you name it. But seriously, so let's talk about Zephyr Showdown here, fam. It kicked off last week. I know I was incredibly sad I wasn't able to hit the desk with you. I was already committed elsewhere, but I did happen to tune in once I got done. It looked like, you know, I first off, I gotta say, production looked really solid. Tell me a little bit about the project and kind of like what things are looking like. It sounds like there's qualifiers, a main event, but I figured who better to like talk about it all than the man himself.
Okay, so the Zephyr Showdown is a event dedicated towards the EMEA region. It is something that I personally, I mean, it's a passion project in full regards to the community, because I personally feel like when it comes to EMEA, they're left in the dust a little bit in terms of getting those competitive tournaments. And it seems like a lot of orgs are slowly peeling away from putting their support there. So I said to myself, screw it. I made the decision somewhere in around December to January. I took 12,000 of my own dollars and I made a nice little prize pool, invited, I mean, everybody who at this point I'd consider friends from the EMEA region.
Okay.
And best of the best are competing. You're right. There's qualifiers. There's finals. This is split over 6 months, so 2K every single month. 2 qualifiers. Obviously, standard 26-game format, and then the best teams get to move on and compete against the next 10 ahead of them. Right now, in February, this is the inaugural month, and so those kind of like 10-team brackets for the qualifier final literally have at the top the finals. You're joined by the top 10 EMEA teams, 11th through 20th in that next qualifier, and then the bottom of the bracket has the rest of the Pro League teams and a ton of really fierce competitive challenger circuit entities. So it's all about offering
everyone kind of a little bit of a chance at the prize pool. That's actually really cool. I like that.
So even your best of the best, while they do retain some nice positioning, you know, may have the chance to duke it out against some fresh new talent, you know, at any given point there. And so it obviously, I mean, everyone knows it. Chrono knows it. Minus Tempo knows it. I mean, we talk in the back end because I work for them.
Right.
It was definitely inspired heavily by oversight and seeing what they were doing for North America. And I thought to myself, you know, I may not have the big partnerships and whatnot. I mean, at least
hey, maybe we could pick one up along the way. Yeah, who never knows, you know?
Pick one up along the way. Who cares? I'm just gonna run a tournament because I think this is the right thing to do.
So, and so these are found on your Twitch channel, correct?
Yes, the Zephyr Casts Twitch channel.
I'll make sure I have it down in the description so people can tune in. Now, I think if I'm not mistaken, so last week was the first week. There's another round this weekend?
Another round tomorrow. February 17th, it will be qualifier number 2, our top 10, moving on from the last qualifier to compete against 11th through 20th in the Pro League. So you'll see teams like Nightmare, Start a Fight, Horizon Union, Passion, Game of Drones, and I mean, if you're an EMEA fan, those are names that, you know, definitely pick up on the register for you.
Cool. Now, before we get you up on out of here, I do want to truly thank you for taking some time to sit down, chat with your boy again. I know you're super busy between casting, content, everything else that you've got going on, obviously IRL. So it truly does mean a lot to get to sit down. And as you had said, we haven't really gotten to sit down, like really chop it up. So I apologize for that. I'm an extrovert introvert that plays an extrovert well, but I'll try and make sure to hit you up some more so we can chat not on such rare occasions. But as far as for the average Apex fan that maybe doesn't keep up with ALGS the way that you do, who's the one team, this is where I asked earlier, one team to make a name for themselves, who's the one team I should be looking at to come out on top of EMEA come split 2? I was worried I lost you there for a second. All right, cool. Good. No, we're stuck in thought. All right.
I think the meta right now, we're going to see things shift here in the next month, but the current meta that is evolving for Season 16 is the comp that Aurora ran initially in some of their first splits. They pioneered it with Mad Maggie, Caustic, and Wraith. That seems to be the number 1 picked comp on World's Edge right now in tournaments.
All right.
So we're literally feeding directly back into a team that, 1, is adaptable, and 2 is going to be about to start playing their favorite comp, who already bests their region consistently. I mean, this is more than the prime time for Aurora to strut their stuff. The fact that they pulled out success through this last meta, surprising in its own right. Now that we're potentially reintroducing some of their best legend picks at the top of the top, I mean, I genuinely can't imagine another team except maybe those who are really great at winning, which is like your Ascends, or those who are super adaptable, like your Element Sixes.
So you think they're the ones that look at them to repeat again, huh?
I mean, we're talking 3 times in a row.
I mean, true. Yeah.
It's sad because this is the truth with Aurora. The fact that they're limited in making it to LAN to really show off how good they are is something that stunts how much respect we should have for them as a team. Because
I think you can say that about the region, really, right?
Right. I mean, at least definitely there's a couple teams there. It's like the good comparison is we look at TSM, who have really been on top of things, or NRG, and it's like when you ask someone who's the best in NA, it's a guarantee that those 2 names
come up first,
will always pop up.
Right.
It should be just as evident when we look at EMEA that you're right out there going, oh, Aurora is like the best team. And I think it's a discredit to not just that roster, but the players themselves and that staff behind there. And it just sucks because a little bit of a language barrier, a little bit of issues at LAN, and it just kind of holds them back.
So you think that also, that was one thing that I was always wondering watching the last couple of LANs, was if there was a way to help with that language barrier. Because we saw them try a couple times with like the translators. I just don't think the content is quite the same. Like, I love the fact that we get to hear from them, but I don't think it quite connects, especially across a screen. It's one thing for us in Raleigh when we were there, right? But like, when you're watching it on a screen, you're like, all right, can we just like go ahead and get to the next game? You know what I mean? If you're like, let's say, a traditional NA fan.
I think there's steps to take in terms of the infrastructure for Apex as an esport for the extended future.
Yeah.
A really good example of what you're bringing up is Fire Beavers won the playoffs, but the team they interviewed was Vexed.
Right.
Because Vexed was the next nearest team that was English speaking. And so in that regard, I think, especially as we try to start peddling these other regions, whether it be EMEA or APAC North, APAC South.
APAC South, yeah.
Kind of, sometimes.
I mean, they
South
showed
America.
out pretty good at, at LAN.
All I will say is that there's definitely a realm for this esport, which is clearly, in my eyes, on its way to being a tier 1 along the greats, like League of Legends, like CSGO, like Dota, to slowly expand into really taking the time to cover all sides of this spectrum, because it would be, like I said, a huge disservice to not represent some of the best out there.
Well, Zephyr, man, again, thanks so much for taking some time. I'm going to let you get up on out of here. You've always been so open to, chatting with your boy, even if I don't always take you up on it. But when I do, in short essence, you always make sure to respond right away. So I appreciate that. But for anybody watching who wants to keep up with you, where can they find you? Social media, stream, content?
Yeah.
Let them know.
It's really easy. Go into Google and type in Zephyr Apex Legends, because there's only one. No, but Twitter at ZephyrCast, my Twitch at ZephyrCast. I mean, take your time, throw it out there. If you want to come out and watch the Zephyr Showdown, it is every 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Friday of the month. And I also host a podcast on Thursdays, notably today, after this in just about 2 hours, called The Hot Zone, with a lovely friend of mine by the name of Mr. JC or Yeso.
I'm usually lurking around. I'm not gonna lie. I'm usually lurking because I'm working, but sometimes I like to throw in some questions, and I always love the content. You guys definitely put on a heck of a show. So, chat now. Do me a favor, man. Don't forget, if y'all enjoyed the video, y'all made it this far, help me out by hitting that like button, leaving those comments down below. It helps me out the most when it comes to that tough YouTube algorithm over here on the new channel. Let me know, what part of the chat you liked here with Zephyr. Maybe who you'd like to hear from next. You know what I mean? If you do want to keep up with more up-to-date as far as esports news, updates, watch parties, hit that subscribe button, turn those notifications on, and big shout out to the community, man. Just hit our first 100 subs over here on the new channel. So seriously, let me know in those comments below who else you'd want us to chat with, And because I've been kind of surprised how many people would be responding back. We've already got some good chats with people like Ramboski, Strafing Flame. I'll make sure I leave a link for those, a little card up in that top right-hand corner. And until we catch y'all back over here for the next watch party or video, don't forget, with everything crazy going on in the world today, be true, be you, be sincere, game hard and love harder. All right, y'all. That's Zephyr. I'm Q. Y'all have a great day.
If you ain't show something, you just don't wanna be. You wanna be me, but you will never be as fresh as see you in.